From the WKYT studios in Lexington, this is Kentucky Newsmakers with Bill Bryant.
Good morning from WKYT News. We're glad you're with us on Kentucky Newsmakers. Kentucky's four-way Republican battle for the nomination for governor is thundering down the track toward the May 19th primary. Here on Kentucky Newsmakers, we've recently interviewed Matt Bevin and Will T. Scott, and we'll be scheduled soon with James Comer. Today, Hal Heiner is here. The former Louisville Metro Council member and businessman has spent millions of dollars of his own money to become the most visible candidate in the race. An outside group favorable to Heiner has also run ads that other candidates have criticized as misleading. How would he be different from the other Republicans offering themselves for governor? Heiner likes his chances with just over 3 weeks to go before voters decide the Republican nominee. Welcome Hal Heiner to Kentucky Newsmakers. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Well, Bill, thanks for having me here. It's always great to be with you.
We had the opportunity to visit last summer. You were just getting started.
That's right.
You were identifying yourself as a businessman. Is that what you will try to distinguish yourself with in these last 3 weeks, given that all the Republican candidates seem to take basically the same stands on most issues?
Well, Bill, yesterday we finished 59 weeks on the road since the announcement, going county to county to county, 6 days a week across Kentucky, talking with Kentuckians about what's possible in the future. And what makes my candidacy stand out from the other candidates is I have spent my life in the business sector, directly in the business of job attraction. And I'll tell you, as I talk to Kentuckians, they tell me again and again, I hear about the spouse that's having to drive 40 miles one way to find a job, about a concern about their children when they finish their education, will they be able to stay in Kentucky? And I believe it's the #1 issue facing the state. And it's an area that I believe I'm uniquely qualified, so I've been introducing myself all across the state for over a year now.
Will you make the case that Kentuckians are unhappily employed? That is, the Kentucky's unemployment rate is now 5.1%. And that's the lowest point it's been since June of 2001. But you've said not good enough. Do you make the case that the state's economy continues to be troubled?
Well, we've largely, the reason our unemployment rate is so low is that so many Kentuckians, tens of thousands of Kentuckians, have stopped looking for work. We actually have tens of thousands of Kentuckians that are that are not working today that were working 5 years ago. So what we're seeing is fewer Kentuckians employed than before this recession, and a lot of people have stopped looking for work. If we look at last year, the $91 million budget shortfall in Kentucky largely resulted from the fact that our economy is growing at less than the rate of inflation. It's not a good direction for the future, and even Business Insider magazine here a month ago ranked Kentucky, our economy, 47th in the nation. It's hurting Kentucky families. We don't have enough good jobs in Kentucky. It's what I know how to do, why I'm in the race.
How high do you rank the right to work law as a priority?
Well, that's certainly an issue on business climate. Right now, Kentucky ranks in the bottom third states in the country in business climate. We need to join the states around us that are in the top 10 states in the country. And there's a whole host of issues there, from a tax platform that's so old, it's moss covered. We need comprehensive tax reform. But on the regulatory reform, right to work is absolutely critical. There's 25 states now, even including Michigan, Wisconsin, that have right to work. And there are a lot of companies, international companies in particular, that's a prime checkoff box on whether or not your state is open to new business, that you have a favorable business climate.
Do you believe that local governments can do that on their own, as they have been doing in some cases, or do you think it requires a statewide law?
Well, I'm fully supportive of what's going on in our counties right now. We need a statewide right to work law. And I have to tell you, I'm very disappointed in our Attorney General, Jack Conway, taking aim on our own counties, going after Hardin County, for instance, right now in a lawsuit, going after them for adopting right to work. Hardin County, Warren County, 20 other counties that are pursuing this, they know the difference it makes in bringing jobs to their community that help families in their community. They've seen jobs not come because of that issue. We have to have it in Kentucky.
He interprets that it has to be a statewide law, one way or the other. Right.
Well, we need to be supportive of the local, until we can get it at the state level, we need to be supportive at the local level. We need it statewide in Kentucky. If we're going to compete with Indiana and Tennessee, we need right to work in Kentucky.
Do you oppose an increase in the minimum wage?
I do. We shouldn't be focused on minimum wage in Kentucky. We're 100,000 good jobs short of families being secure in this state. What we need to focus on is bringing those good jobs, the kind of companies that bring money into Kentucky so it circulates again and again in our state. We don't need to be sending messages out from Kentucky that we're going to just do things to business here that other states are not willing to do. What we need to do is focus on being the most competitive state we can be so we can bring jobs in so our children can find a job when they finish their education. And all of that's in peril today because we're headed in Kentucky, we're on the wrong track when it comes to business attraction.
You mentioned education. Where do you stand on, I know you want to eliminate the Common Core standards, or you oppose those. What is it that you don't like about Common Core?
Yeah. I oppose President Obama's agenda of Washington, D.C. that wants to come in and control our health care. They want to come in and control our coal and natural resources in Kentucky. And their latest move is to come in and control education. Today they're saying, we'll pay for your testing, through Common Core. We'll pay for your testing for your students. Well, we don't want the federal government controlling the testing for Kentucky students. I've called out for I believe in very high standards, but we should have Kentucky standards, Kentucky curriculum, and Kentucky testing. But on the education issue overall, we need total reform in education here in Kentucky. We're not preparing our students for career or college. I can't tell you how many businesses across the state have told me we cannot find welders. We can't find people that are trained in tool and die, advanced manufacturing technology, people in medical technology. I'm hearing from ambulance services they can't find paramedics. So we need an education reform that's two-tracked. Industrial and technical certifications, and as well as college credits, and pull that down into our K-12 system. Other states are doing it with tremendous results. We haven't, except in a few school districts around Kentucky, we haven't brought it to Kentucky, and it's time to do that.
All of the Republican candidates have been critical of the Affordable Care Act, and you just have been. Obamacare is, as you know, a two-term governor, Steve Beshear, a Democrat, considers that one of his crowning achievements to establish Connect, which is the state exchange, the state health care exchange. Do you or do you not want to take that down immediately if you're elected governor?
Well, first, Obamacare is the worst approach on medical care we've ever seen in the United States. We have the best medical system in the U.S. and in Kentucky of any place in the world. And to think that it can be run by the federal government is just completely wrong thinking, and it's hurting people. So I support Senator McConnell, Senator Paul in calling for the full repeal of Obamacare. I am very disappointed in the current administration, and they're just joining up through Connect with Obamacare. And Obamacare needs to end as it exists today. Now, if you look at what's happening with other Republican conservative governors around the country, they are finding ways to provide that health care in a sustainable way that doesn't crush the state budget. So what we have with Connect today, once this 3-year free period is over and we start seeing 100 to 400 million over those next 3 years required to keep it going, we don't have the money, it's not sustainable, it can't be connected. But you look at what the governor in Tennessee has said, we can provide this health care and it doesn't impact the state budget. You see what's going on in Iowa, and they say we're going to build in a level of personal responsibility, incentives for healthy lifestyle choices, going to primary care and preventative care rather than just the emergency room. They're lowering their overall health care costs, and they're finding affordable, sustainable ways to provide that health care.
Would it be your goal to continue to have those who are enrolled right now in the Medicaid expansion or who have the incentives to get health care at a reduced rate, to keep those people covered?
Absolutely. I want to find sustainable ways that we can provide health care. A couple of my opponents have said we just need to turn them off today. I guess somebody's going through chemotherapy. Their goal is, just shut them off today and, they can do whatever possible. But what we need to do is take a responsible approach, an approach that we find that is both financially sustainable and also reduces the overall cost to state government to a point that we can stand. Otherwise, we stand the risk of shutting down health care in 75% of Kentucky.
But you're acknowledging that even after the next governor takes office, there might be some time taken to arrive at a decision as to how to move forward.
Yeah,
correct?
we need a new plan in Kentucky, and we'll go to work day one on putting that new plan in place.
Well, with Hal Heiner, Republican candidate for governor on Kentucky Newsmakers, our remaining moments with him coming right up. Welcome back in, Kentucky Newsmakers here on WKYT, and we're with Republican candidate for governor Hal Heiner, continuing our discussion. If you are the Republican nominee after May 19th and Jack Conway is the Democrat, voters will face Louisville versus Louisville across Kentucky. Now, you've been traveling the state a lot. Do you relate to people outside in the Commonwealth well, do you think, at this point?
You know, we've had a tremendous reception across the state, and you know, Kentuckians are first; they're incredibly gracious to begin with, but we've had a great reception. You know, Sheila and I, we've raised our 4 children on a corn and soybean farm. Certainly, from an agricultural standpoint, we understand those issues. But we've had people join us in states across, in counties all across the state, have joined our campaign and are excited about our campaign. Are calling our office, Hal, we want to go door to door for you. We want to get signs out for you. We want to make phone calls for you. We want to send email to our friends for you. In counties, whether they're rural or urban, all across the state. So no, I'm tremendously encouraged right now. For this election in the fall, I think the contrast between Jack Conway and myself will be very, very clear, very stark, quite frankly, about where we need to go as a state. My background has been in the private sector and growing jobs. I know what we need to do in Kentucky to compete. Jack's background has been in Frankfurt. We differ completely on right to work. I know we have to have right to work if we're going to compete in Kentucky. You know, he's opposing right to work. His president, you know, has brought Obamacare, you know, to Kentucky. And I oppose Obamacare and think we need an entirely different, a conservative approach to provide health care. So I think the voters will be faced with a very stark contrast between the two of us. And what I'm feeling as I travel around the state, regardless of party, that people are joining on our campaign.
Would you be for the state pulling back on regulations where it can, where it has that option regarding coal?
Oh, absolutely. You know, as I've talked with coal operators in eastern Kentucky, they are burdened. 30% of their production costs today are just as a result of increased federal regulations directed at Appalachia, and which is making them much less competitive in the past. And in fact, they are so over-regulated today that they'll have one inspector that says, put this kind of guard on this piece of equipment. The next inspector comes in and says, oh no, put this different kind of guard. And they're just saying, just tell us what to do. We're happy to do it. And the other part is, it's taking over 5 years to get a permit to expand underground with no new surface openings, and over $1 million in the permitting process. Other states like West Virginia are using their universities to help coal operators get their permit application, the technical aspects together. Those are the kind of things we can do in Kentucky to help that industry move forward. An
issue group that is not under your control has run spots that are designed to benefit you. Candidate Comer and candidate Bevan have called those spots false and misleading. Have you considered denouncing those spots or saying something about their content if you don't believe it to be true?
Well, those are not our ads. And what I've told Kentuckians is I want you to judge my candidacy and whether or not to vote for Casey Crosby and myself based on what we say and what we put out from our campaign. It's illegal for us to say, oh, that ad's okay and that ad's not okay. It ends up being direction. They know that. You know, certainly, you know, Matt Bevan's no stranger to having outside groups, you know, attack the daylights out of other Republicans. You know, we never heard him, reputing anything because he knows it's illegal. We can't. Those are independent groups with absolutely no connection to our campaign whatsoever.
A huge transportation project hangs over Kentucky's head with the Brent Spence Bridge up there that at some point is going to have to be addressed. It carries I-75 and I-71 over the Ohio River. What would be your approach to getting that built? Yeah. You have tolls over in Louisville, where you're from, but in northern Kentucky there seems to be strong opposition, and candidates seem to to go with that, with the regional thinking on that?
Yeah. Well, this is an area of tremendous strength. I'm a civil engineer, a little different sort of candidate, and spent the first dozen years of my life designing roads and bridges and water and sewer systems all across the state. I was actually a proponent in the project you just mentioned for reducing the cost of that project by $800 million that ultimately, I led on that effort, ultimately reduced the overall cost of that project. Those are the kinds of things that we'll be looking for, like they did in Louisville, like they did in St. Louis. Actually, in St. Louis, they reduced the costs enough that they didn't have tolling at all. Now, I'm opposed to tolls. I know the people in northern Kentucky are certainly opposed to tolls, and we need to find a way, an area that's a prime trade corridor that feeds Kentucky, that feeds our manufacturers. We have to find a way for that project to go forward, and we need to find a way to do that without tolls.
Did you oppose the tolls in Louisville?
Actually, a group that I did. I was opposed signed a resolution that opposed tolling on existing infrastructure. When I ran for office there, had support from a group that said say no to tolls. I looked for bringing the toll, looked for ways to reduce the overall cost of that project in Louisville. But it was the #1 goal in that project. There was 2 interstates ending at the Ohio River. It was the #1 transportation objective for that community for 40 years. And finally, there was a way for it to move forward, but I never voted for tolls.
All right, Hal Heiner, candidate for governor. May 19th is the date, and he faces 3 other candidates. Thanks for coming. We appreciate it.
Okay, Bill, it's great to be here with you as always.
All right, thank you. Hope you'll stay with us now. More coming up on WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers on WKYT. There is a new councilman in Lexington's 1st District, and he got there without running or being elected, but he now indicates he is running for the seat. Mayor Jim Gray appointed James Brown to be the council member when he named former Councilman Chris Ford to be his Commissioner of Social Services. Brown says he will be a candidate this fall, and he comes to the job at a time of changes and challenges, as always, for Lexington and for his district. Councilman Brown is a realtor who's been active in many community endeavors, including serving on the school redistricting committee. Councilman Brown, welcome. It's good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
We understand that Mayor Gray had a lot of people express some interest in potentially serving on council. Why did you want to serve?
I looked at it as an opportunity to learn more about Lexington and what I know what some of the challenges are for the city and for my district specifically, but I looked at it as a learning experience to get a broader view of what's going on and what the different roles that the district plays and how the whole city pieces together. And my job or my duties as a realtor actually gives me the flexibility to be an effective council member. I have the time to reach out and meet citizens and other elected officials and kind of piece both of those together to be a good council person.
Early on in your term, how have you been learning more about your district and the city? Do you go out and talk with a lot of people and groups?
Yes, sir. I've actually been attending neighborhood association meetings. It's a lot of neighborhoods in the district, and they seem to meet every day of the week, so I stay pretty busy doing that. And then I also have been setting up appointments and meeting with other community members and organizations and just kind of getting a feel for what's going on in the district.
How do you describe your district, the 1st District, and maybe the biggest challenge you find there?
Well, it's a pretty large and diverse district with a lot of history in it. You got neighborhoods on the west side, on the east side, on the north side out near the interstate, and then you got neighborhoods in downtown Lexington, historic neighborhoods. So, and some of the challenges it faces is just there's certain areas where there's different group of people living and moving in together, and just coming together as a community is some of the challenges.
Because it continues to diversify,
yes,
as you
sir.
said. And you talk about the historic neighborhoods, and then there are those who, at this point, want to preserve those or even redevelop those. And sometimes that causes property values to increase, and some who are there, then their taxes go up. And so I understand that is a bit of a rub in the district right now as well.
Yeah, I think what some of the citizens' concerns are is that part of what happens when you come in and renovate houses and resell them, it just causes property values to rise, which if you have a resident that's been living in the area for years and this is something new and they're on a fixed income, that can be a challenge or an unwanted benefit of redevelopment.
The district was hit by a crime wave last summer. Of course, that was a problem across the city as well, and there have been, once again, early problems in the city this year. How can that, or is that, being addressed?
I know we have a recently appointed police chief, and I've heard him speak. I haven't had a chance to meet with him individually yet, but he has some initiatives and some programs that I think that he's looking at rolling out to address some of those issues. Another way that the crime can be addressed is by some of the proactive activities that's going on in the district. I know they started. I think one of the churches on Georgetown Street started having a peace walk last year, and I know that other organizations started trying to have proactive instead of reactive activities to divert the crime.
What opportunities do you see for Lexington, or maybe even for your district, that you don't feel have been fully explored at this point?
Like I said, I'm still learning, what's going on in the district and all the activities. So I'm just actually excited about learning about some of the programs and the initiatives that are going on and what I can do to help facilitate some of those.
Do you share Mayor Gray's enthusiasm for downtown with the money for the old courthouse in his proposed budget, his push for Rupp Arena that last year was sidelined, and the town branch project? Are things like that important to you?
Yeah, I think having a vibrant downtown is an important aspect of the city. I think downtown is the heart of the city, and if you do things that are good for the heart, then it'll be good for the whole city. So I am interested in some of those projects.
Did you grow up in the district?
Yes, sir. I grew up on the west side of Lexington, off of Georgetown Street.
Was it a good place to grow up?
It was for me. It was a pretty tight-knit community. Everyone knew each other, and families helped raise each other's children. So yeah, I enjoyed my childhood in Lexington.
Do you think that kind of network still exists?
I think it does. I think like the whole district's changing, the whole city's changing, but I think communities working and growing and living together are what makes for a strong and for a good city. So I do think they still exist.
Do you think people have to be these days fairly intentional about being part of the community or about creating communities?
Yeah, I think that's a very good statement. I think you do have to be intentional. I think with today's society, with technology and all the activities and things that families and individuals have going on, I think you have to make an intentional effort to be involved in the community.
All right, a couple of controversial issues we know will be coming up before. Of course, the budget is always, that's a big document, and there's a lot in it that is proposed as well. But a couple of things. There are some on council that want to go a minimum wage locally. And of course, that one was not passed by the state legislature, and it has stalled out on the federal level. But there's some who want Fayette County to establish its own minimum wage. How do you feel about that?
I really haven't formed an opinion on it yet. I'm still, talking to people in the community and to other council members, trying to get a perspective on the issue. I know there's people that feel passionate either way, whether to increase or not to increase the minimum wage. So I'm still getting input and trying to determine a position. And
then the right to work issue, which has come up in several counties and has been passed by some localities, although the current Attorney General says it is a state issue and should not be a local issue, but several counties have done it, and in some cases Warren County indicates that they have had a significant number of people who have inquired of expanding or bringing business there because they have it. How do you feel about right to work on a local level?
Well, I kind of put it in the same category as minimum wage. I just haven't, formulated an opinion on it yet, and I'm going to do some research and try to find out, what the benefits are or not of the right to work.
When there are issues that are controversial or have competing interests who are fighting it on both sides, how are you going to make decisions? Where will you reach out, and how will you decide?
I got a pretty good sphere of mentors, and as people in the district will find out, I'm pretty easy to talk to, and I'm pretty open to other ideas and opinions. But I think what I'm gonna lean more heavily on is the feedback I get from the community. Just what's important to them is what I feel like I need to do to better serve the constituents in the 1st District.
Are you accessible to them?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am accessible. I'm on Facebook all the time, and I check in where I'm at. So I'm always out in the community, and I'm getting a lot of phone calls right now, and I'm not returning them all fast enough. But I do feel I am pretty accessible.
You are running for the seat in the fall, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that will be to complete the term?
Yes, sir. It would be to complete the term of now Commissioner Chris Ford.
And do you look forward to that campaign? You haven't done that before, right?
No, I am looking forward to it. I haven't done it before, but I heard that campaigning is pretty exciting. And I look forward to the opportunity to getting out and meeting more people in the district and finding out what their concerns are.
Well, just a few weeks on the job now. Do you feel this is something that is for you, that you might look to serve long-term on council, maybe look at some other political position in the future?
I think I'm just going to focus on the position that I have right now, but I do. It's not something that I campaign for, but I'm pretty excited about it and look forward to the work that can be done.
Councilman James Brown of Lexington's 1st District, appreciate you coming in.
Hey, I appreciate the invite.
And we want to thank you for joining us for this edition of Kentucky Newsmakers. I'll see you bright and early this week on WKYT This Morning. We start at 4:30 on Mid-Morning, which comes up at 10, and on WKYT News at noon. You make it a good week ahead.